The rain never stopped on planet Lyrith. Gray clouds hung over the shining towers of the capital, and acid rain washed away the bright lights of the market streets. Amid the crowd of aliens rushing home, one figure stood out. A thin woman with greenish-blue skin, clutching a small child close to her chest. Her name was Naraya, and her little boy Aro was barely 6 years old. They had arrived from a faraway mining colony after their city was destroyed in a reactor explosion. Naraya had lost everything, her home, her husband, and her documents. She had come to the capital to find a job, any job, to keep her son alive. But every door had closed in her face. "Sorry, we don't hire your kind," said the robotic receptionist at the factory gate. "Your species doesn't qualify," said another, and some didn't even bother to speak. They just turned their backs. For days, Naraya walked the streets, hungry and desperate. Aro coughed often. The air on Lyrith was heavy with metal dust. Each night they hid under an old cargo ramp near the spaceport, wrapping themselves in an emergency blanket that barely kept out the cold wind. Still, Naraya whispered hope to her son. "Tomorrow, Aro, tomorrow someone will help us." But tomorrow never came. That evening, lightning flashed across the sky. Ships landed and departed from the giant spaceport, engines roaring like thunder. Naraya watched the crowds of travelers, aliens, androids, and even a few humans, rushing by without seeing her. Her stomach twisted with hunger, but Aro's breathing was worse. She touched his forehead. It was burning. She needed medicine fast. Swallowing her pride, Naraya approached a food stall nearby. The vendor, a thick-armored Jorxian, looked up from his counter. "Please," she said softly, holding out a few metal tokens. "Can I get some food?" "My child hasn't eaten in 2 days," the alien laughed. You refugees never stop begging. Get lost before the patrol sees you." She begged again, her voice trembling. "Just a small piece of bread." The Jorxian slammed the counter. "I said get out!" The shout drew attention. People turned to stare, some in pity, most in disgust. Naraya grabbed her son and backed away, tears streaming down her cheeks. That's when a voice spoke from behind her. "Hey, that's enough." She turned around. A tall human man stood there, rain dripping from his coat. His eyes were sharp but kind. His name was Elias Kane, an engineer from Earth who worked on interstellar cargo ships. The Jorxian frowned. "This is none of your business, human." Elias stepped closer. "Maybe it is. You just yelled at a mother trying to feed her kid." The vendor's eyes glowed red with anger. "She's an off-worlder, illegal." "The law?" "I know the law," Elias interrupted. "But I also know basic decency." For a long moment, the two stared at each other. Then Elias tossed a few credits onto the counter. "Give her food. And double the portion." The vendor grumbled but obeyed, sliding a small meal across the counter. Naraya stared at the human, unsure what to say. Elias crouched down to the child's level. "Hey, little guy. You hungry?" Aro nodded shyly. Elias smiled faintly. "Then let's fix that." They ate under the spaceport roof while rain drummed against the metal walls. Naraya watched the human in silence, unsure if she should trust him. People rarely helped strangers, especially not aliens like her. Finally, she whispered, "Why did you help us?" Elias looked out at the rain. "Because I saw my sister in you." She had a kid too. She didn't make it when our colony went dark. Naraya lowered her eyes. I've been looking for work, but no one." He nodded slowly. "I might know someone. A mechanic team at Dock 47. They don't care where you're from, only if you can work." Her eyes widened. "Truly?" "Truly," he said. "Come tomorrow morning. I'll vouch for you." For the first time in weeks, Naraya felt something she'd almost forgotten: hope. But high above the spaceport, in the gray mist, a hovering patrol drone watched them. Its lens flickered red as it sent a report to the Galactic Labor Authority. Unauthorized species contact with human worker detected. Possible law breach. The drone flew away silently, and down below, as the rain poured harder, Naraya held her child close, unaware that one act of kindness was about to shake the laws of the entire galaxy. The next morning, the gray clouds still hung over the capital sky, but for the first time Naraya felt light inside her heart. Elias had told her to meet him at Dock 47, a place where the giant freighters landed and took off every hour. She wrapped her son Aro in a blanket and whispered, "Today things will change, my love." They walked through the busy streets. Workers shouted orders, engines roared, and the smell of burning plasma filled the air. Every step felt like walking into a new life, but also into danger. Naraya didn't know that a Galactic Labor Authority drone had tracked her since the night before. Elias was already waiting at the dock. His uniform was slightly torn, his hands covered with grease, but his smile was warm. "You came," he said. "I promised," she answered softly. "Thank you for everything. Let's see if we can get you working. My friend Rax runs the maintenance crew here. He's grumpy but fair." They walked through the metallic corridors of the dock. Huge ships floated above them, their hulls glowing with blue light. Workers of all races moved around, fixing pipes, loading cargo, and repairing broken drones. Rax, a tall insectoid alien with mechanical arms, looked up from a control panel when he saw Elias. "Who's this?" he buzzed. Elias replied calmly. "A mechanic. Hard worker. Needs a chance." Rax's red eyes scanned Naraya from head to toe. "What species?" "Lirathi," she said softly. The room went silent for a moment. Rax's mandibles clicked. "Lirathi? That's risky, human. You know the interspecies employment law. Humans are not allowed to sponsor refugees from restricted colonies." Elias frowned. "Yeah, I know. But she's not dangerous. She just needs a job." Rax shook his head. "You're a good man, Elias, but kindness can get you arrested here." Naraya stood quietly, feeling shame rise inside her. "Please," she whispered. "I can work. I can fix engines, clean filters, weld parts. Anything." Rax's eyes softened a little. "You worked in a reactor colony, didn't you?" She nodded. "Until it exploded, I lost everything." There was a long silence. Then Rax sighed. "Fine, I'll test her. If she's good, I'll find a way." He handed her a broken plasma regulator. "Fix this." Naraya took it carefully, her hands shaking. She sat down beside a workbench, pulled out a few tools, and began working. Her movements were quick but precise. Within minutes, the device hummed with life again, glowing blue like a heartbeat. Rax blinked his 4 eyes. "Well, I'll be damned. She's better than half my crew." Elias smiled proudly. "Told you." "All right," Rax said, turning to Naraya. "You start tomorrow. But if the inspectors come, you hide. Understand?" "Yes," she whispered, tears of relief filling her eyes. "Thank you." That night, Naraya and Aro slept inside a storage room at the dock. It wasn't much, just a small space between containers, but it was safe and dry. Aro hugged his mother. "Mama, are we going to live here now?" "For a while," she said gently. "Until I can find us something better." Elias visited them before leaving. He brought them food and a small blanket. "Rax will pay you in credits once the job starts. But be careful. The law here. It's not kind to aliens," she nodded. "Why are the laws so cruel?" Elias sighed. After the colony wars, the Galactic Council made strict rules. They said it was to protect humans from alien influence. But honestly, it's just fear. He looked out through the open gate where the stars shimmered faintly above the city haze. "I think fear is the only real virus this galaxy has left." But while they spoke, a silver drone hovered outside, scanning their voices through the thin metal wall. Inside its system, a red alert message flashed. "Unauthorized alien worker registered at Dock 47. Subject, Lirathi female with minor child. Human accomplice detected. Elias Kane." The message transmitted silently to the authority headquarters. The next morning, Naraya began her work. She wore a spare uniform, her hair tied back, eyes focused. The crew was surprised at her speed and skill. Even Rax couldn't hide his admiration. "You're not just good, you're brilliant," Elias grinned. "Told you she's special." For a moment, everything felt right. Naraya worked with purpose again. Aro played safely nearby, and Elias felt proud to have helped. But peace never lasts long on Lirath. That evening, when the dock lights dimmed and the crew left, a small holographic notice blinked red on the main control board. Inspection notice, Galactic Labor Authority. Random audit scheduled for Dock 47, tomorrow, 0900 hours. Rax froze when he saw it. Elias turned pale. Naraya looked up, confusion in her eyes. "What does that mean?" she asked. Elias took a deep breath. "It means they're coming for you." The next morning, Dock 47 was quieter than usual. Even the machines seemed to hum with tension. Every worker knew what a Galactic Labor Authority inspection meant. Audits, scanners, and strict officers searching for any illegal workers or contraband. But for Naraya, it meant something worse, exposure. She stood beside a cargo crate, her hands trembling slightly as she adjusted a panel. Her heart raced every time footsteps echoed down the corridor. Elias entered, his expression grim. "They'll be here in an hour," he said softly. "Rax wants you to hide in the lower maintenance bay. It's safer there." Naraya looked up, eyes full of worry. "If they find me, what will happen?" Elias hesitated, then answered quietly. "They'll deport you. Back to the mining colonies, or the refugee camps." Her breath caught. "Those camps are death." "I know," Elias said. "That's why we won't let them find you." Down in the maintenance bay, the air smelled of rust and oil. It was dark, filled with humming pipes and tangled wires. Elias led Naraya and Aro to a small compartment behind an old generator. "This is where we used to hide faulty droids," Elias whispered. "No scanners can reach here. Stay silent, no matter what." Naraya crouched down, pulling her child close. "What about you?" she asked. "I'll handle the inspectors," Elias said. "You just stay safe." Aro looked up at him with wide eyes. "Mr. Elias, will you come back?" Elias forced a smile. "You bet, kid. I always keep my promises." An hour later, the inspection began. A ship landed at the dock, sleek, silver, and covered in the authorities' black insignia. From it stepped 3 officers in metallic armor, their faces hidden behind reflective helmets. Rax greeted them with forced politeness. "Welcome, inspectors. Dock 47 is ready for review." The lead officer's voice was cold and robotic. "Routine check. Cooperation will ensure efficiency." They moved through the workspace with scanners and data pads recording everything. Elias followed calmly, pretending nothing was wrong. But his pulse was racing. The scanner beeped suddenly, faint but sharp. One of the officers turned. "There's an unidentified heat source in the lower bay." Rax tried to stay calm. "Probably a faulty generator." "Show us," the officer demanded. Elias stepped forward. "I'll take you there." As they descended the stairs, Naraya heard distant voices above. She pressed her hands over Aro's mouth, praying he wouldn't make a sound. The hum of the generator masked their breathing, but the sound of footsteps grew closer. "System anomaly detected," said a metallic voice. "Possible biological presence." Naraya's heart pounded. Aro trembled in her arms, then she heard Elias's voice. Closer, firm but calm. "See, the generator overheats every week." "That's your heat source." There was a pause. The officer scanned again. Strange. The signal fluctuated. Elias leaned closer to the machine, pretending to check it. "Because of this old coil. I've been telling Rax to replace it." "Want me to prove it?" He suddenly pulled a wrench from his belt and hit the coil hard. Sparks flew and the generator roared. The heat levels spiked. The scanner beeped louder, then went silent. The officer stepped back. "Confirmed. Faulty coil." Elias smiled faintly. "Told you." Up in the control room, Rax watched the scene on the monitor and let out a long breath of relief. But one of the officers wasn't satisfied. She turned her visor toward Elias. "You seem nervous, human." "Who wouldn't be?" he replied. "Every inspection ends with half the crew scared out of their jobs." The officer stared at him for a long moment, then finally nodded. "Inspection complete. No violations found." As the officers left, the heavy door closed behind them with a metallic hiss. Rax slumped against the wall. "By the stars, Elias. You almost gave me a heart attack." Elias just laughed softly, though sweat dripped down his face. It worked, didn't it? Later that evening, when the dock was quiet again, Elias returned to the lower bay. He knocked twice on the metal plate. "It's over. You can come out." Naraya emerged slowly, holding Aro's hand. Her eyes were full of tears and of relief and gratitude. "You saved us," Elias shrugged. "You fixed a generator that keeps this dock running. I just returned the favor." She looked at him deeply. "No one has ever risked so much for me before." He smiled. "Then maybe it's time someone did." Aro tugged at Elias's sleeve. "Are we safe now?" Elias hesitated, glancing at the dark sky beyond the dock's glass walls. "For now, kid. But the galaxy's watching, and they don't forget easily." Far above, in the orbiting authority station, the same silver drone replayed the inspection footage. Its AI scanned the human's face, Elias Kane, and highlighted it in red. "Suspicious interference during inspection. Recommend surveillance order." The report uploaded silently into the galactic network. Back on Lirath, Naraya watched the stars from the dock platform, her son asleep beside her. She whispered to the night, "One day, Aro, I'll make them see that kindness is not a crime." But she didn't know the next challenge would not come from the law, but from the people who feared her most. The night after the inspection, Dock 47 was unusually quiet. The storm clouds outside had cleared, leaving a pale moonlight shining through the hangar windows. Naraya stood on the catwalk watching the distant stars. She finally felt a sense of peace, fragile but real. Aro slept soundly in the storage room, wrapped in the blanket Elias had given them. For the first time in weeks, Naraya dared to dream again. Maybe, she thought, things could finally get better, but peace never lasts long on Lirath. Elias was still in the workshop, tightening bolts on a plasma valve when Rax approached him. "You were reckless today," Rax said in his deep, buzzing voice. "If they'd caught her—" "They didn't," Elias replied. "And she deserves to live," Rax sighed. "You humans, always mixing compassion with trouble." Elias smiled faintly. "Someone's got to try." Before Rax could respond, an alarm blared through the dock. Beep, beep, beep. The lights turned red, flashing against the metal walls. Workers looked up in panic. "What now?" Elias muttered, running toward the main screen. Rax's claws tapped the console. Unauthorized entry detected. Dock gate breach. On the monitor, a group of dark armored figures appeared. Pirates. Not space pirates from the outer zones, but industrial raiders. Hired thugs who attacked docks and sold stolen ship parts. And they were armed. Within minutes, chaos broke out. The raiders stormed through the corridor, firing plasma rifles and shouting. "Take the cargo! Leave no witnesses!" Workers screamed and ran. Sparks flew as gunfire tore through the walls. Elias grabbed a wrench and the only weapon nearby and then turned to Rax. "Get the crew out." "I'll hold them off." Rax nodded. "And the alien woman?" Elias froze. "Naraya. She's with her son." He ran. Naraya had already heard the alarms. She clutched Aro tightly, hiding behind cargo crates. The sound of explosions grew closer. "Mama, what's happening?" Aro whispered, his small hands shaking. "Stay down," she said softly. "Don't move no matter what." Footsteps echoed nearby, rough, heavy boots. A voice shouted, "Search the storage rooms. Anything alive, grab it." Naraya held her breath. She looked around and there was nowhere to run. The door burst open. A raider stepped in, tall and scarred, his rifle glowing blue. "Well, what do we have here?" he sneered, aiming the weapon. "Refugee trash." Naraya pushed Aro behind her. "Please don't hurt my son." The man laughed cruelly. "Then come quietly." But before he could fire, a metallic clang echoed behind him. Elias swung his wrench hard, striking the raider across the back of the helmet. Sparks flew as the man fell to the ground. Elias stood panting. "You all right?" Naraya nodded, trembling. "You came back. I promised I would," he said. He looked around the burning corridor. "We need to move. Now." They ran through the smoke-filled hallways, Aro clutching Elias's hand. The emergency lights flickered red. Behind them, the sounds of fighting grew louder. Plasma fire, shouting, the screech of twisting metal. When they reached the loading bay, they saw Rax trying to seal the doors. "We're outnumbered," he shouted. "They've cut the power lines." Elias looked around desperately. "The escape shuttle. Is it still operational?" "Half-fueled," Rax buzzed. "But it can fly." "That's enough," he turned to Naraya. "Take Aro and go with Rax, I'll distract them." She shook her head fiercely. "No, you'll be killed." "I can handle them," Elias said, gripping his wrench tighter. "You just keep your boy safe." Her eyes filled with tears. "Why are you doing this for us?" He smiled faintly. "Because someone once saved me too." The raiders burst into the bay. Plasma bolts flew through the air. Elias ducked behind crates, throwing tools and dodging fire. He hit one raider with a wrench, kicked another aside. He was fast, but they were many. Naraya helped Rax drag Aro into the shuttle. "Mama," the boy cried. "Elias!" "Stay down!" she shouted, pulling him close. Rax's mechanical arms worked fast on the controls. Engines online. Elias was cornered now. A raider aimed his rifle at him. "End of the line, human." Elias grinned. "Not yet." He hit the emergency release lever. The floor hatch opened beneath the raider, who screamed as he fell into the cargo shaft. Elias ran and leapt toward the shuttle. "Go!" he shouted. Rax slammed the launch button. The shuttle's engines roared to life. Flames burst beneath it as it lifted off the ground. Elias grabbed the hatch just as the ship rose. Naraya reached out, catching his arm, pulling him inside at the last second. The shuttle burst through the roof of Dock 47, leaving behind fire, smoke, and chaos. From above, Naraya watched the dock shrinking below them, a burning scar on the metal city. Aro clung to her arm, tears on his cheeks. Elias sat beside them, breathing hard, blood on his sleeve. "You're hurt," she said. He smiled weakly. "Just a scratch." Rax looked back from the cockpit. "We can't go to another dock. The authorities will track us," Elias nodded. "Then we go off-grid. Somewhere safe." "Where?" Naraya asked softly. He looked at her and the child. "Somewhere the law can't reach." As the shuttle disappeared into the night sky, a transmission played on the wrecked dock's control panel. "Emergency alert. Dock 47 destroyed. Suspected fugitives. Human engineer Elias Kane and Larathi refugee female with child. Status. Wanted for questioning." The shuttle drifted silently through the endless dark of space. No lights, no signals, and just the faint hum of the engine and the flicker of dying power cells. Inside, Naraya sat beside Aro, who slept against her shoulder. His small chest rose and fell softly, unaware of the chaos they had left behind. Elias sat near the cockpit, staring out the window. His arm was bandaged with a torn piece of cloth, his face tired but calm. Outside, the stars stretched like silver dust. Rax's mechanical fingers clicked over the controls. "Fuel's almost gone. We can't reach any registered ports." Elias leaned forward. "What about the outer belt?" Rax turned his insectoid head. "That's outlaw territory. Pirates, exiles, and worse." Elias gave a faint smile. "Sounds like our kind of place." Hours later, a shadow appeared on the radar, a small moon hidden behind a gas giant. No signals, no patrols. Rax pointed at the screen. "That's Haven 9, old mining colony abandoned years ago." Elias nodded. "Perfect." They descended through dusty clouds. The surface below was covered in cracked rock and metal ruins. The colony looked dead. Silent halls, broken towers, no life at all. The shuttle landed with a dull thud. Steam hissed from the vents as the engines shut down. Naraya stepped out first, holding Aro's hand. The air was cold and dry, the sky tinted red by the nearby planet's light. She looked around the silent wasteland. "Is anyone here?" she asked. Rax scanned the area. No life signs. Just ghosts of machines. Elias placed a hand on the rusted gate ahead. "Then maybe it's time we bring life back." Inside the colony, the halls echoed with every step. Faded posters from the mining days still hung on the walls. "Glory to the workers of Haven 9. Elias found an old generator and crouched beside it. "If we can power this, we'll have lights, heat, and maybe clean air." Naraya watched him work. His hands moved with quiet confidence. The sound of his tools was almost comforting. Aro peeked around curiously. "Mama, is this our new home?" She smiled softly. "Maybe for now." Minutes later, the generator roared to life. Lights flickered across the corridor, revealing rows of metal doors and shattered control panels. The silence broke, replaced by a hum of rebirth. Elias looked up and grinned. "Welcome to Haven 9. Over the next few days, they worked together to make the colony livable again. Rax repaired water filters and built a small greenhouse. Naraya cleaned the living quarters, patched walls, and cooked simple meals with whatever supplies they had left. Elias worked tirelessly on fixing the power grid. For the first time in a long time, laughter returned. Aro chased Rax's small helper drone through the halls. Naraya smiled watching them. Even Elias laughed, a sound that had grown rare in his life. But late at night, when everyone slept, Elias stayed awake by the old comm station. He stared at the blinking red light, the distress signal he'd secretly sent before leaving Larath. He hadn't told Naraya. The signal wasn't for the authorities. It was for a friend, someone who could help them disappear for good. On the fourth night, Naraya found him there. "You're still awake," she said gently. Elias looked up. "Just keeping an eye on things." She sat beside him. The dim blue light reflected on her soft green skin. "You miss your home?" she said quietly. He nodded. "Earth, maybe, but it doesn't miss me. I left after the wars. Too many rules, too many lines drawn between what's human and what's not. And yet you saved us," she said. "You risked everything for strangers." Elias smiled faintly. "Maybe I just wanted to remember what being human feels like." She looked at him. her eyes shining with gratitude. "If kindness makes you human, then I think you're the most human soul in this galaxy." Elias chuckled softly. "Careful, Naraya. Talk like that might start rumors." They both laughed quietly, a rare moment of peace in a galaxy full of fear. But far away in the cold orbit above the gas giant, a small satellite came to life. It picked up the faint signal Elias had sent and relayed it across the stars. In the Galactic Authority Command Center, a red alert appeared on the screen. "Unauthorized transmission detected near Haven 9. Possible fugitives: Elias Kane, Larathi female, juvenile." An officer turned to her superior. "Should we dispatch a retrieval team?" The commander's eyes glowed through his visor. "No need. We'll let the bounty hunters handle it. They always find their prey." Back on Haven 9, Elias and Naraya didn't know that their short peace was already numbered. Aro slept between them, smiling in his dreams, while the wind whispered through the broken towers. And above them, among the stars, something moved, a small ship with black wings and a hunter's mark painted on its hull. It was heading straight for them. The days passed quietly on Haven 9. The old colony, once dead and forgotten, now breathed again. Lights flickered, air purifiers hummed, and the scent of growing plants filled the narrow halls. For Naraya, it almost felt like a home. She tended to the small greenhouse every morning, singing softly while Aro played beside her. Rax worked on repairing an old security drone, and Elias often disappeared into the tunnels, checking for leaks or damaged systems. But beneath the peace, Elias carried a weight he couldn't shake, the faint guilt of that signal he'd sent. He told himself it was to find help, but part of him feared what else might have heard it. One evening, a thin mist covered the moon's surface. Elias was fixing a power conduit near the outer gate when he noticed something unusual, a set of footprints in the dust. They weren't his, and they weren't Rax's either. He froze. The prints were deep and wide like heavy boots, fresh, less than an hour old. He followed them to the ridge above the colony, and that's when he saw it. A ship, dark as shadow, half hidden behind the rocks. Its engines were silent, but the faint red light of its beacon pulsed slowly. Like a heartbeat, his stomach turned cold. Someone's here. He ran back to the base. Inside, Naraya was setting the table, a small meal of ration stew and dried fruit. Aro was laughing at one of Rax's mechanical arms, clumsily trying to peel fruit skin. Then Elias burst in, his face pale. "We have to move now." Naraya looked up, startled. "What's wrong?" "Ship on the ridge." "Not patrol." "Bounty hunters." Rax's eyes widened. "How do you know?" "Because I've seen that mark before," Elias said grimly. "A black wing with a red line. They hunt people, not criminals, not soldiers. People with a price on their heads." Naraya's voice shook. "Us," Elias nodded. "You, me, the kid. The authority must have put a bounty after Dock 47. The colony lights dimmed suddenly. Click, click. Darkness swallowed the room, Rax hissed. "They're jamming our power grid." Then from outside came the low growl of engines. Shadows moved between the rocks, armored figures, silent, efficient, like predators closing in. Elias grabbed a small blaster from his toolkit and turned to Naraya. "Take Aro, hide in the tunnels. Don't come out until I call." "I'm not leaving you again," she said firmly. "This isn't a debate, Naraya." He snapped, then softened. "Please, I'll keep them busy." Rax clanked his metal arms. "And I'll stay. I'm not built for running." Naraya's heart pounded, but she obeyed. She took Aro's hand and ran toward the tunnel entrance, her footsteps echoing in the dark. Outside, the bounty hunters moved like shadows. There were 3 of them, one tall and thin, one massive and armored, and one small, wearing a mask that glowed faint blue. They spoke through static voices. Thermal signatures confirmed. 3 targets inside. 1 human, 1 insectoid, 1 alien female with child. "Orders?" the big one asked. "Capture alive. The authority pays double for breathing specimens." Elias watched from behind a broken wall. His pulse raced, but his mind was calm. He had faced worse. Storms, riots, space battles. But nothing like this, where the enemy hunted for his soul. He whispered to Rax, "Time to make them regret landing here." Rax grinned, his mechanical arms clicking. "I was hoping you'd say that." The first bounty hunter stepped through the colony gate. The moment his boot hit the floor, the metal plate beneath him exploded. A blast of sparks and heat threw him backward into the rocks. Rax laughed from the shadows. Old mining traps still work. The second hunter fired into the smoke. Elias ducked and shot back, hitting a fuel line. The pipe burst, flames spreading through the corridor. The small, masked hunter slipped through the fire like a ghost, landing behind Elias. End of the line? Human. But Elias turned and blocked the shot with a metal shield, swinging his wrench hard. The hunter stumbled, mask cracking. I'm just getting started, Elias growled. Meanwhile, in the tunnels below, Naraya held Aro close as dust rained from the ceiling. The sounds of battle echoed above. Gunfire, explosions, Rax's metallic roars. Aro whispered, Mama, will Elias be okay? She swallowed hard. He has to be. But then the light ahead flickered until a shadow moved. A tall figure appeared at the end of the tunnel, holding a glowing scanner. The third bounty hunter. He smiled beneath his helmet. Found you. Naraya's breath caught. She pushed Aro behind her. Stay back! He raised his weapon. Don't make it hard! Suddenly the ceiling burst open. Elias dropped down from above, slamming into the hunter. They crashed into the dirt, wrestling. Sparks flew as their weapons clashed. Elias shouted, Run, Naraya! Go, but she didn't run. Instead, she picked up a broken metal pipe and struck the hunter across the head. He fell with a thud, helmet cracking open. Elias stared at her, shocked. She was breathing hard, eyes blazing. I told you. I won't leave you again. The battle was over. The bounty hunters lay unconscious or dead. Smoke filled the colony air. Rax limped in, half his mechanical arm missing. Elias looked around the wrecked base. They found us. More will come, Naraya nodded. Then we have to find somewhere they'll never look. Aro tugged Elias's sleeve. Where will we go? Elias looked up at the stars through the broken roof. Home, he said quietly. But not mine. Yours. Naraya's eyes widened. Lyreth, he nodded. It's time we return, and show them what kindness can really do. Far above, a damaged hunter's ship transmitted a weak signal before shutting down completely. Targets escaped. Destination unknown. Warning, human Elias Kane, highly dangerous. The small shuttle tore through the dark of space, its engines weak but steady. Inside, Elias sat at the controls, eyes fixed on the glowing blue planet ahead, Lyrith, Naraya's homeworld. The same planet she had fled from in fear and loss, and now against all odds she was going back. Behind him, Naraya sat with Aro asleep in her lap. Her face was calm, but her heart pounded with 1,000 emotions, fear, hope, and something new she couldn't name. Rax worked silently beside them, repairing the ship's damaged systems. His mechanical arms clicked rhythmically. Elias broke the silence. Once we enter orbit, the scanners will see us. They'll know you've returned. Naraya looked up. Then we'll face them together. He smiled softly. You always say that. The shuttle rattled as it entered the planet's atmosphere. The clouds glowed orange, the engines whined under pressure, and for a moment it seemed they might burn up. But then, like a falling star that refused to die, the ship broke through and descended over the shimmering fields of Lirath's surface. It was no longer the peaceful home Naraya remembered. The land was scarred. Massive mining pits and dead cities stretched across the horizon. But there were still pockets of life. Small camps, refugee shelters, and hidden towns. They landed near one such settlement where broken domes and tents lined the valley. The air smelled of metal and smoke. Naraya stepped outside, holding Aro's hand. Her eyes filled with tears. This was once our home. Elias placed a hand on her shoulder. Then maybe it can be again. The people in the camp watched them with suspicion. Alien faces peered from behind metal sheets and cracked walls. When they saw Naraya's Lirathi markings, some gasped. When they saw the human beside her, they whispered. A guard approached. Humans aren't welcome here. Elias raised his hands. I'm not here to fight. I came to help. Help? The guard scoffed. Where was your kind when our cities burned? Naraya stepped forward. He saved my child. He saved me. Without him, I wouldn't be standing here. The guard hesitated. Around them, the crowd gathered. They whispered, watching the strange pair, a human and an alien mother side by side. Then, from the back, an elder stepped forward, an old Lirathi woman with silver skin and deep eyes. Bring them inside, she said softly. If the human speaks truth, we'll listen. Inside a cracked dome that served as the council hall, The elder listened as Elias told everything, from the job at Dock 47, to the inspection, the attack, and the hunters that followed them. When he finished, silence filled the room. Finally, the elder spoke. "You risked your life for one of us, when your people call us enemies." Elias nodded slowly. "Because she isn't my enemy. She's a mother. And her child deserves a future, just like ours." The elder turned to Nariah. "And you, child, what do you seek?" Nariah stood tall. "A place to live without fear, to work, to raise my son, not as a refugee, but as a Lirathi." The elder's gaze softened. "You have courage, both of you. Maybe that's what this world needs," but outside the dome, engines roared again. A new ship descended, sleek, silver, carrying the Galactic Authority insignia. Elias looked out the window. "They found us," Rax hissed. "We can't outrun them again." The elder's voice was steady. "Then we will not run." The Authority soldiers stepped out, their weapons raised. "By order of the Council, surrender the fugitive alien and the human accomplice." Elias stepped forward, shielding Nariah and Aro. "You'll have to go through me first," one of the soldiers sneered. "You're violating interspecies law," Elias smirked. "Then maybe your law needs rewriting." He raised his hand, not in surrender but in defiance. The crowd behind him stirred. Refugees, workers, mothers, all stepped forward beside Nariah. The soldiers hesitated as hundreds of voices rose together. "She's one of us," someone shouted. "Leave them alone," yelled another. "For once," said the elder, stepping into the light, "the law will hear our voice." The standoff lasted seconds that felt like hours. Then one by one, the soldiers lowered their weapons. They weren't trained for this, not against unarmed civilians standing side by side with a human who refused to leave. Elias exhaled, lowering his hands. He turned to Nariah, smiling. "Looks like we just made history." Tears filled her eyes. "No, Elias, you did." Days later, news of the human defender spread through the colonies. The Galactic Council, under pressure, suspended parts of the alien employment law. Nariah was granted freedom to live and work. The first Lirathi refugee officially recognized. She built a small workshop near the valley, repairing old machines. Elias stayed with her, helping rebuild the colony. Together, they created something stronger than law: trust. Every night, Aro sat by the fire and listened to stories of stars and kindness. "Mama," he'd say, "is Elias a hero?" Nariah smiled. "No, my son. He's a human, and sometimes that means more than being a hero." Elias laughed softly, looking up at the stars. "Maybe one day the galaxy will remember that too." And high above Lirith, the broken laws of the old world began to fade, replaced by something new. A single act of kindness that had started with an alien mother and a human who refused to turn away.